sing, I needed some help in how to practice. I'm a violinist by trade, and I think I kind of have a handle on that, although I need a lot of advice. But learning how to repractice again on a new instrument that I was a beginner at was a big challenge. Hey, come on in. We're just getting started. You're not late. Anyway, it got me thinking that I'd love to hear from my colleagues and the people that I admire and, wish I was as good as they are. I'm wondering how they practice. So that's what we're going to do here today. I'll introduce everybody. They'll tell you a few secrets about what they do to practice. And then we'd love to answer any questions you have, or we hope it will prompt some discussion about what are the best ways to practice. I'm going to start and break the ice. Again, my name is Mimi Rabson. I'm in the string department here at Berkeley. I've been here for a long time. Here's the advice I can give you about practicing. As Sal said, practicing sucks, but we know that we have to do it. I went to school at the music school down the street there, and when I got to music school, I found that many of my colleagues who were, really good players, better than I was, spent a lot of their time practicing in front of the television. And I was horrified by that. I mean, how can you do anything serious in front of the TV? But I noticed that, the ones who were doing that were getting a lot more practice time, and they were, light years better than I was. I thought about it for many years, and then a few years ago, I had the great good fortune to do some work with Itzhak Perlman, the great concert violinist, and he told me that he practices in front of the TV. Like the world was moving beneath my feet, He likes to practice in front of baseball because you don't have to pay attention all the time. There's very little action, no music. You turn the music down, it's still there. But it distracts you from the, 1,000 repetitions you have to do to get good at something. Furthermore, he told me that Jascha Heifetz, the greatest violinist who ever walked the earth, classical violinist, the greatest one ever walked the earth, practiced watching soap operas. Wow. Come on, right? That's shocking, isn't it? So after that, I thought, all right, I've got nothing to lose. Come on in. I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to try it. And sure enough, this was after I was out of college already, for a very long time in the afternoon between 12:30 when the soap operas come on and 5 o'clock when Oprah comes on, I sat in front of that TV and practiced my ass off. And, it made a big difference. So that's the advice I want to give you. A lot of it is repetition, repetition, repetition. You've got to find a way to do the things that you have to do over and over again. You have to find a way to distract yourself. This is why there are televisions in gymnasiums and gyms, because if you've got to do 1,000 sit-ups, you've got to have something to distract your mind. So that's the advice I would like to share, the thing that made a difference for me. I haven't figured out how to do that with the piano yet. I don't think I'm good enough yet to do it on the piano, but hopefully I will do. On my left, we can start with Sal DeFusco. We've known each other for... I think we met just last week, wasn't it? I don't know. Anyway, Sal, how many guitar players are here today? So I hope you're all students of Sal's.
He's you guys all get extra credit, all the guitar players.
Genius guitar player. I'd like to turn it over to
Thank you, Mimi. Thank you. Like she said, my name is Sal. I'm in the guitar department here at Berkeley. Been teaching here probably as long as you, 20 years, 20 plus. Yeah. And I want to thank Mimi and all my colleagues here for putting this together, because practicing is such a huge issue. I mean, you think about it. Let's face it, natural talent is important to a certain degree, but it really is going to be your practice habits that's going to make or break it. It's going to, take you and determine how far you're going to go with your craft. So, I think students, especially in an institution like Berkeley, it's challenging. I know I like to give my students plenty of stuff to work on, but if you got 7, 8 teachers giving you, a bunch of stuff to work on, how do you do it? There's so much information. It's like information overload. You ever felt that way? Yeah? Do you feel that way? Most of you guys in the 5-week? Yeah. Do you feel a little information overload? Okay, all right, so you can relate. Wait till you go to college here. So I think being organized can be difficult, but I think it's very important, So I got just a couple of tips here. I jotted down a couple of notes. I think number one, I got to try that thing with the watching the, especially the baseball, But I think number one, focus is really the key. Focus. And, I was thinking about it. I think quality practice is more important than quantity. Now, I'm not saying anything against quantity. I think quantity is very important too, but I do think that you can noodle away for, 8 hours and get more out of 20 minutes of focused practice than 8 hours of just noodling. Now, I think noodling is fine. I have nothing against it. And, watch a soap opera, watch a movie, do whatever you want to do. If you're playing your instrument, you're good. You're doing good. But I do think that, trying to keep your mind focused is very, very important. So I think, not taking on more than you have to, I think is important. I think as far as learning difficult pieces, breaking things down one bar at a time. I try to really simplify things for my students. If you have to learn, a pick-style classical piece, try to do just master one bar. And then once you master that one bar, go to the second bar. And then play both bars together and master that. Then go on to the third bar. You'll find that over time, you'll get a lot more done versus trying to conquer a whole piece at one time. I think secondly, what's really helped me through the years is having a practice log. That really helps you to be organized, right? You'll practice something, right? And if you don't know what you practiced, the next day, you'll probably, if you don't have a log, you'll probably just end up practicing the same things that you practice, right? We love to practice the stuff that is easy for us, right? Like those keys that we like, right? See, I tend to, well, I don't tend to, I do a lot more now. I really work hard on making sure that I practice whatever concept through all the keys. So if I did, my major scales in the key of C, key of F, key of B flat, I want to write down, hey, I got through the key of B flat so that the next day I'm going to start on E flat. You know what I mean? Instead of starting back on C again, which, I feel really great about. So I do that. I practice all my concepts in cycle of 4, all keys, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, and all the way through. And then I log in what key or what concept I left off with so that I know what to do. I actually have a sample of one of my logs up here if anybody wants to look at it later. I think thirdly, practice a concept until it's mastered. And I think, again, younger students, there's so much information out there. So I have students all the time saying, man, how do you do that? How do you do this? Can you give me the secret ingredient on how to be able to accomplish that or play that or do this? How do you play out, man? Just give me the secret formula, And there is no secret formula. It's just something that you build over time as you master certain concepts as you go. But what ends up happening is you'll see a concept, you play it, you'll dig in, you get bored, and then you move on without really having mastered that. So you're not really building anything because you forget it as soon as you learn it. And I know it's difficult. It's easier for me at my level being as old as I am, but students, it's a lot harder. But I would say try not to take on more than you can and try to stick with something until you really have it under your fingers. Some concepts take several months. Some concepts that you practice will take you years, maybe even decades. Don't worry about that. And then lastly, I'll just finish with this. I think it's important to find the joy in your own progress, your own progress. And I think I see a lot of students, they compare themselves with everybody else, Well, that guy can do this, and I can't, so, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing, and oh my heavens, look how fast that guy plays, or, how great that woman sings, or whatever it is. And I think you got to try not to compare yourself with others, but keep working on being the best you that you can be. I think that's important. Now, I think a little competition is good, right? It's inspired me in the past, gee, I want to be as good as that guy. But don't let it overwhelm you. Let other players inspire you, but always stay focused on your own progress. Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. Next on our panel here is the magnificent Ricardo Monzon, drummer, percussionist, who I've had the pleasure of playing with several times since I've known him. Fabulous musician. Take it away, Ricardo. Talk to us about playing in all 12 keys. Ha ha, little drummer joke.
Yes. Uh, well, it, yeah, the practicing part is involves a lot of different things. Like we were talking about how people find specific ways to practice. Basically, your environment is very important. How do you create the environment for yourself that you feel that you can focus, you can go to the, because most of us now cannot really practice. Either they say that you want to practice in front of the TV or watching a specific movie or Game of Thrones or you know. But most of the time now, due to the logistics, the apartments, it's hard to do it. So you have a practice room. So your practice room has to be something that you're gonna prepare it to feel good about. Logistics about it. Bring your stuff ready that you wanna play. In my case, I'm percussionist and drummer. Have to bring your sticks. You're gonna bring your headphones, different, to listen to the music that you're gonna be playing to. Um, Different levels of what you're gonna be preparing yourself. As I was talking to a student this morning, we were talking in the morning in class. Um, you have a few different priorities when you are practicing. We all want to be professionals. We want to be good at the instrument, but in the meantime, like many of you right now, you have requirements. You have to take your instrumental classes, a lab, you have an ensemble, you have your private lesson, and then you have the liberal arts. You have to do music theory, prepare essays, you have to read. You have, so it's so many things. So the first well, two levels I would say that you need to think of yourself how you're going to be preparing for what. Um, One of the things I said, first of all, you enter the school, you have to do the requirements for specific things that you have to do. So you better take care of that. And as a drummer, percussionist, there's specific style that you have to do in let's say, the first semester, and you have to do those regardless of anything else. And you have the basic minimal requirements. So be happy if you can do the minimal requirements first, because you have to do the same thing with the other courses, the other classes. Then after that, you can continue with the variations, with the getting deeper into the concepts that you are doing. You're gonna have to let it go for a minute and say, okay, that's good. Like what Sal was saying, it's a moment in which you have to, okay, that's good enough, and stop doing this, boom, 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 the same thing over and over and over for 20 minutes and 30 minutes. How long do you have to practice one thing? Especially when we like some groove and we tend to do that again and again and again. All right, that's when you have to start moving on. They say, well, wait a minute, I need to complete the rest of the stuff. So minimal requirements is one thing to make the grade. First, you have to get a good grade, right? You want to make the grade that you want to pass. The second level of your practice, for me, is the professional one. Okay, now you want to practice for a specific style or all the styles, whatever you're doing, because you got a gig, you have to play with a band, then it's a whole different story. It's not just one pattern that you're going to have to learn how to play as a minimal requirement. No, you got to learn how to play funk or rock or bossa nova, Afro-Cuban music. So you don't need only one pattern. You need more than that. So this is a different level. So one of them, I said, you should focus on what you need to do for the requirements to get a grade, because that's the priority, right? If you don't make the grade, and then you're in trouble, because then you have mom and dad. What happened? Why you have a C over here? Why you didn't make it? So that's the thing. And then the professional aspect, start building up little by little. You have to be patient with yourself. I agree with Sal, all of this, because I went through that in our days when we came to school at Berkeley. Back in the days, it was, for me as a drummer, I came here as a professional already, as a professional drummer, originally from Guatemala. And I found some of the kids that were here, 17 years old. I was already 28 when I came to Berkeley. Some of these guys, some of the best drummers right now in the world, and they were here when I came to study at Berkeley. And so I used to see them playing, and I was like, oh my, what? You know, Marvin Smith, Jeff Tain Watt, and Terry Lynn, Carrington, and a bunch of, and besides that, all the musicians on different instruments. And they were like totally beyond this world. And for me, it was like, wow, I need to catch up with these people. I don't think I can ever do it. Because there were certain things that they could do like better than me. But then I had to find my own niche. What is it? What my specialty? My specialty was more of the groove and basic things in sound and colors and stuff. And some of the drummers, for example, they were like chops. Man, I couldn't compete with that. So watch for that. Go be yourselves and make sure that you focus on what you have to do, what you are accomplished. You have accomplished, and a step at a time, one step at a time, and the priorities. One practice, some practice will be for the school, for your grades, and the other ones are okay. You want to go beyond that because you want to get the gig. That's a whole different story. You gotta get the gig and play and be able to really play. Then that's another task. All right. So basically, those kind of things are the one that I always consider, in my practices. And your environment, it is important. You make it whatever you think is going to be the environment that you want to do. I said it is 3 levels environment that I think of. What is around you, what is on you, and what is inside you. Your mind. You're frustrated. You're having some problem. You're blocking yourself from going beyond. That could be what is inside you. What is on you, whatever you're dressing, whatever you're listening to. You have stuff like sometimes I tell some of the students, in ensembles or private lessons. Excuse me, but why are you taking the lesson? You're playing and you had your backpack for 20 minutes. You've been playing the drums and you had your backpack. Oh, I'm used to do it. Well, is that the way you're going to play on the stage? Is that how you're going to be doing? Well, maybe not. Okay, take your backpack off. Relax. You know what I mean? That's something that is on you. Sometimes certain things will distract you or will do another weight that will make you feel tense, stressed. You don't want to be carrying your backpack when you're practicing. I mean, unless that's that's something, you know what I mean? But that's part of your environment. And then what is around you, the room that you play in, the drums, tuning of your drums. You want to probably put a nice picture of flowers or something like that. Go for it. So you not wanna make that environment, those 3 levels, be with you and you with them and feel relaxed. You don't have to think about anything else other than practicing, focusing on what you need for whatever specific reasons, and go one step at a time, bar by bar or tune by tune, and of course the ultimate goal, which is be professional. That takes time. You gotta build on that. And whenever call you for a gig, you gotta investigate, research a little bit. What is the style? What you're gonna be doing? Even you feel that you know about maybe rock or funk you've been playing, but some bands that could be very specific what they want you to do, and you gotta research, and then that's a different type of practice that you have to do, specializing on specifics, and besides getting familiar with the all around styles as a professional. Studio musicians, orchestral work, you'll be required to play anything. I'm talking about drums, but not really just drums. This is anybody. And you playing with a band, you like trios? Okay, trios is a specialty. You got beyond trios, you have quartet, quintet, it's another story. You gotta get used to it. You wanna play with orchestras, the Boston Pops, symphony orchestras, theater, pit orchestras. Oh, It's everybody, every different thing has specifics that you will need to work on and get involved into that, immerse yourself into that. So that's beyond practicing for the grade, which is good. Like Sal was saying, put it on your schedules. You have your classes, and you have an hour here. It's not an hour just to go and hang with the friends all the time. You got to plan for that. You got to plan to go out with your friends a weekend and be ahead of the game. The planning part of your schedule. Got to do it. I learned how to do that when I came to Berkeley. I wasn't really ready for all the stuff that I had to do. And finally, I started to, I need to plan on this. But I was going crazy by the middle of the first semester. I was panicking. I thought it was, I wasn't going to make it. But I had to really relearn and plan on all these things, the steps, to make sure that when I went to the room to practice, I had everything I needed there to make it worthwhile. So, well, that's pretty much what I had to tell you. Any questions later on, please bring them up.
Thanks, Ricardo. And on the end of the line here is the fabulous Darcel Wilson. I've been a fan from afar for a long time. You're a vocal teacher here, but you're also in the ear training department, is that right?
I am. I'm in the ear training department.
Great. So you get to give it to us from both both ends of the story.
And I really enjoy, as Mimi said, I'm in the ear training department, and I love being in that department because I get a chance to work with instrumentalists, not just the vocalists. So I love that, you know. Mimi, thank you for inviting me to this panel. I think it's awesome that we have various instruments here to talk about things we do to practice. And I just want to say that practicing as a musician, when you are a musician, it's what you are, it's who you are. So you make practicing a way of life. It's like eating. You don't go a day without eating. So why go a day without doing something that is related to your art? So for me, to make time to practice is not my favorite thing to do. It feels like drudgery when you have to go over and over the same thing. But I've found a way to make it a part of my life. One thing I do in terms of just getting started in the day, as a vocalist, because we have to hydrate, we have to stay aware of that, I keep water by my bed, and I drink it as soon as I wake up in the morning. And so that's part that I consider that as part of my routine that's my everyday life. And then I have 5 or 6 areas of relaxation. I pay attention to relaxing the face, and literally I'm sitting on the side of my bed doing this when I wake up, because we need all of the muscles in our face to speak and to phonate. We need all of our muscles. We need our jaw to move when we need to speak. We need an agile tongue when we want to enunciate. We need relaxed muscles under our tongue to sing. And we need for our larynx or our voice box to be relaxed. So those 5 areas, in case you wanted to write them down, are face massage, starting at the forehead, just doing a very gentle massage. And then there's the jaw stretch, just pulling the jaw open like this. And all of us can do this, actually. You don't just have to be a vocalist for that. So you want your jaw to be able to be as, want it to move as easy as this. And not this. Right? So you're not moving it yourself. You're actually moving it with your hand, so that, you know, the mind works differently in those 2 situations. The next one is tongue stretch. So the tongue is such a large, it's a thick muscle. So you want to make sure that you're pushing it out from the back of the tongue, just so that you can stretch. When that stretches, it pulls up the larynx, so it pulls up the throat area, and you're getting a nice stretch on those muscles. And then you're going to go under the tongue to the swallowing muscles and just kind of knead that area, relax that, because this has a tendency to push down. all of these areas, if you are a singer, you might realize that it gets a little, they get a little tired. Even if you're a public speaker, you might get tired in any of these areas. Or if you play another instrument that requires a lot of facial muscle movement. And then lastly is the larynx, and just kind of locating where that is and just moving it gently side to side, literally. So that's something that I make sure to put in my personal routine. And then in the shower, I'm phonating. I'm singing the things we take for granted, little things, but it makes me feel good because I know that I'm making this a part of my life. So in terms of staying aware of that, I like that Ricardo mentioned paying attention to what we are practicing for. So keep your gigs in front of you. If you're doing something professional, no matter what level of professionalism it is, or whatever it is, even if it's something in front of your classmates or if it's something at Carnegie Hall, just keep it in front of you so that you know what's coming up, and then you assess what material you're going to be working on. And I like to encourage my students to have a pile, have a working pile, and then like an almost ready pile. Like that song is not quite ready, wouldn't sing that in public, but this one's ready to go. So there comes a time when you work on it till it's time to bring it and show it to people, more than your family anyways. And then there's the other stuff. There's the technical stuff that you need to do. With this, you have to pay attention to your, I call it body balance, but it's like your posture, and try to focus on what you're doing as you're, excuse me, try to focus on what you're doing as you are practicing, because sometimes as vocalists, because we are emotional people, and our instrument comes from our emotion, and also we're psychological thinkers, and we overanalyze, like many of us do anyway, no matter what instrument you're playing. A lot of times we can lose our focus and think about what it sounds like as opposed to whether or not we hit the notes, So I want to encourage you guys to really focus on the technical aspect of what you do, so try to keep your focus there. Also, as we grow, sometimes we grow beyond the basic me, even though that's beneficial. You want to continue to add some things. For myself, I like to, and I'm only referring to myself because these are things that I like to implement. So I'm not trying to say me. Anyways, me. I'm not trying to talk about me. Just kidding. No one gets it. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, y'all. Anyways, these are just thoughts, but I totally forgot what I was saying. That's so sad. Oh, yeah, push yourself. So one thing that teaching ear training does for me also is that I try to hang with my students with the work. So ear training 3, we're approaching modes. Okay, what does this mean for a vocalist? How can I apply modes to what I do in singing? Why is it important? Ask those questions of yourself, but then analyze these modes. See where they fit into music and see where you can sing in and around them. So I create a log for myself. I have a book of exercises that I personally have developed. They have things from all of the modes. So I started out with, just do up the scale. So major is there automatically. And then there's Dorian, there's Phrygian, there's Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian. And then I don't really focus on the Locrian thing, but I do a lot of chromatic exercises. So I don't think of it as the Locrian scale, but doing that and just doing little things that you would apply to your major scale. So this is an easy technique to gather. It's like if you go do re mi fa mi re do, do re mi fa mi re do, and say you're gonna now do a Lydian exercise. Do re mi fi mi re do do ban da dun do ban da do do de a dun do 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 do. If you're doing that with a flat 7, so then you start to create different phrases for yourself within this, and then you can plug them into to chords and things that might work along with that. So keep yourself challenged. I mean, you know, I'm not as young as you guys are, many of you in the audience, and the thing about it is I still want to go forward with growth. So if you don't practice, you don't grow. And if you are finding that you are singing the same songs that you sang when you were in elementary school, middle school, high school, and you're not growing, then you need to reassess. So that comes to assessment and also listening to other music. Listen to something outside of your comfort zone so that you can get an idea of things that you can do to add. But also you want to take a break and then go back to it. That way you can digest what you're doing and things like that. So hopefully that was helpful, but so much that can be said, right?
Thank you so much, you guys. I do want to open up the floor to questions, but I have two other things I want to share briefly before we do that. We did this panel a few weeks ago just with string players, and the one of the people on the panel mentioned the idea of keeping in touch with. Think about when you see little kids playing an instrument or singing, or think about the first time that you picked up your instrument or sang a song, and you remember the joy that you had at that moment, the freedom that you felt, the desire to kind of participate in whatever this thing was called music. Don't ever lose sight of that. Even when you're practicing something and you're feeling discouraged and overwhelmed and all of those things, try to stay in touch with that person you were or the little kids you see around you who love what they do. And remember that the practicing that you're doing is drawing out that love that you have. Try to always stay in touch with that, whatever that piece of you was that drew you into this in the first place. Because honestly, being a musician is who you are, and there is no reason to be in this field unless you love to be a musician. There's no other reason. The other thing I wanted to share was something I saw at another panel. There was a guy talking about the little voice that's in our head that's saying, "Oh, you know, that's discouraging when you're practicing." And he pointed out this thing I'd never put together. How many people in this room play video games or have played video games? Come on, y'all have done it. I know you. Put your hands up. He pointed out that when you play a video game, when you blow it or you die, or I don't know, I don't play video games, when you fail at a level, you're spurred to try it again. Oh, if I'd only opened that door first, or if I only jumped on that mushroom first. Okay, I'm going to try it again. This time I'm going to jump on that mushroom first, and then I'm going to open the door. That didn't work either. All right, this time I'm going to turn to the left before I jump on the mushroom and open the door. And somehow playing a video game, that there's a draw there to try it again. Just change one little thing and do it again. Think about your practicing like that. Okay, this time I played that B was just a little too flat. Maybe if I made it just a little brighter next time, better. Oh, that was too bright. Now I'm going to go back and do it again the other way, So I don't know. I guess I have a lot of media in my head. Think about your practicing like a video game. Watch TV while you practice. What is wrong with me? I'm a cyborg, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting way to think about practicing. And instead of what we usually think of with practicing, like, oh, I played that B flat was wrong. I terrible. I shouldn't play anymore. I should give it up. No, that's not it. That's why you practice, to make that B flat sound a little bit better than it did before. So another image to help with. Okay, we're going to questions. And because I'm sitting here, I want to ask you guys the first question, and then we can open up to the floor. So we're talking a lot about how to practice the things that you can do by yourself, technique, mindset, what it is exactly that you're working on. One of the things I'm wondering about how to practice is how to prepare yourself to be in a room with other people that are playing with you, and how to be able to communicate with them and to respond to the things that you're hearing from them, so that you're not just standing in a room next to other people who are all playing in a bubble of the thing that they practiced. Is there a way to practice that?
I can answer.
Go for it.
Yeah, that's a very good question. As a matter of fact, me and a couple of colleagues, we teach a first semester master's class just for rhythm section players that have minimal experience in ensemble playing. And, that is that's like language, is what you're talking about. You're communicating with other musicians on the bandstand or in the ensemble or whatever it is. And it takes time to learn a language. I mean, when we were all born, we didn't have somebody teaching us the language. We kind of learned as we went and picked it up. So one thing that we stress a lot, which is kind of sad because it's happening less and less, is people actually getting together to play. So I just think like us, we were all a little bit older. We all kind of made that clear. When we were younger, I mean, I know for myself, and I'm sure with all of us, that's all we did. We just couldn't get enough of playing with other musicians. And I find that that's happening less, and especially in an institution like this. Because, you can get very, very self-focused with everything, kind of like Ricardo was saying, there's so many things going on. So I would say the way to practice it simply is by doing it as much as you can. Make the contacts, get the phone numbers. We encourage that in that class. We even choose a band leader to kind of organize things, get each other's numbers. That's probably one of the best parts of being in this school, is that, you get to meet other musicians that you can play with so that you can, learn that language and how to speak with each other musically. I really don't know any other way to do it than by doing it, because like a language, it takes a long time, and it just takes ongoing work on it. I will say, just lastly too, that, there are things, little things that we discuss in that class. Eye contact, I think, is very important. Where to end a song, how do we all end together, how do we all start together, what are some common things that are within the language, whether it be, what's the thing at the end of a song, a tag or whatever it is. So again, it's all language. So, but it's things definitely to explore, but you can't explore it unless you're actually doing it together.
But yeah, one of the first steps to get into that before you have a band, a group of friends to get together. Of course, playing along, with tracks, it helps a little bit to get the idea of different instruments and play with those instruments is one way. But if you want to be a musician, a performer, the best thing to get together with other people, it is, well, get friends from the school. Besides the ensembles, some people from the ensembles that you're taking right now, you may feel closer to and say, why don't we get together, boom, and get together on a weekend on your own? And that's how the first network starts in this school. Many of the well-known people in the industry, in music, you can ask them, and they still working together with a lot of people they met in the school. In Berkeley, many of us still connected and do work in studio, blah, 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 anything. When two of the things I would say, when you're thinking about, this is another level, we're talking about, different levels of your practices and all that stuff. This is another level of practice with people. And you're going to be thinking of not just yourself playing, look at me, how good I am. The thing is, you're going to learn how to listen. That's the more important part, how to listen to, right? Because you can find a lot of times different groups in which everybody may be great. They can be amazing, guitar player, drums, and everybody, and everybody is in their own world trying to show how good they are. And people can be going like, wow, this guy, they good, but it's no groove, To start with, groove, we have groove, a couple of terms that we use, groove and pocket. So I always think, for example, as a drummer, you practice your styles or whatever it is, you gotta, to play in the pocket, you have to think about the balance of that, whatever the pattern that you do, in your right hand, the cymbal, or the hi-hat, the bass drum, the snare, the balance of all of those, what's supposed to be louder than the other, and the feel that you do, and the backbeat on the snare could be rock, could be anything, but that has to be there, like we say, in the pocket. But you balance all of that, and you're gonna sound good within yourself. That's you can have a good pocket. Could be a bass player, guitar player, but when you get together with the ensemble or with your group that you're gonna rehearse, you may have your pocket, but if you are not listening, you're not trying to get in the groove with everybody who also have their own pocket, and then things don't work because everybody will be on their own individually. It's not the essence, of something happening. So being in the groove is being able to play in the pocket, but also play within everybody else's, pocket and grooves, and that's what makes a band sound great. So could be, that's a
Okay, I'll use this one. Yeah, so I agree. And I was thinking, um, you want to plan on what you're going to be working with as you are planning to work with the group that you're going to be practicing with or singing with or performing with, but also bring a good attitude, because when you have a funky attitude, nobody really wants to be around you. We're not coming to practice to babysit you, and we're not coming to practice to hear you whine. It's not fair to the other players. So, bring a good attitude and a good work ethic. If somebody's saying, you know what, you're playing too loud, you know what, be humble enough to respect their ears and maybe play a little lower or turn your amp around or do whatever. I'm having I'm having some PTSD moments right here, but anyway, or something like. But and we want to respect one another. Also, when we do speak to one another, you want to be kind in the way that you say something. It's like that note is wrong. You're singing the wrong note. Don't come in yelling at people. But at the same time, if you know what you basically want to have as your end goal, is this for a performance? Is this for bar mitzvah? Is this for whatever the situation is? Have the end goal in mind, and then you know what you're going to be working on, and work on your intros, your endings, your segues, things like that. Solos, work on the forms of the songs. Those are the things, and put them all together. That's all I got.
Do you guys have any questions? Yeah. What's the most optimal time window for a practice session?
I actually got a little. I did a little poll today among a few vocalists, and for me, I see other instrumentalists say that they practice for hours on end, which is fine, but your voice gets so tired so quickly. So I recommend half-hour increments with a break. So try to get up to an hour a day, but do a half hour and then take a little bit of break and do another one, and then pay attention to how you're feeling vocally. If you're feeling too tired or run down vocally, maybe rest a little more and do some technical work or do some reading or different things that don't involve singing. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm relating it to the guitar, of course, because that's what I play. But what was I gonna say? I think with everything else, say, you want to start going to the gym, right? And you want to start building muscles, right? You're not going to go to the gym and you're not going to work out for 5 hours lifting heavy weight. Well, why? Because the next day you're going to be sore, you're going to be angry, you're going to be like, I don't want to ever look at another weight for the rest of my life. So I do think it's important to start, I do think consistency is probably the best. Not even, don't look at it as by terms of time, but hey, can I get in 10 minutes a day? Can I get in 15 minutes a day, a half hour a day, and start building on that. I know for me, I do the best when I pick a certain time of day that I stick to every day to practice. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do this hour, every day. Now, of course, it doesn't happen 365 days a year because I tend to practice more in cycles, because of my profession or whatever. There's different things that happen. But I would definitely say consistency is key, and don't start too, crazy. Start with and then build it up to an hour, and then build it up to, 2 hours, and and then I think that'll happen. But Try not to do too much too fast at one time, is what I would say. I guess the answer to that question is different for everybody.
Also, I think going back to was it you that said about focus, what you're focusing on? I think instead of thinking, well, I have to practice 2 hours today or 3 hours today, you could think, here are the things I got at my lesson this week, or here are the things I want to work on, and have your practice log and spend some time working on one for a while until your brain explodes or you get tired or it's time to go do something else, and then work on the next one. And I think you'll find that if you're working at it like that, the number on the clock won't matter. What's important is that you got through the work and that you did it in 20 minutes of focused practicing is better than 3 hours of noodling. Is that how you said it? Noodling, yeah. And I want to echo what Darcel said about the fatigue. It's not just vocalists. I'm sure every one of us here on the panel has had students who've had some kind of muscle problem from over practicing. So pay attention to your body, not just singers in the room, but everybody else. Pay attention to your body. If something hurts, stop. That seems so obvious, doesn't it, when you say it out loud, but a lot of people miss that. So if it hurts, stop, ice it, go away. Like if you were at the gym and you had a trainer and you'd say to them, this is hurting. Okay, we won't do that for this next time.
I just want to add something else. Keep in mind that what we are doing is basically training ourselves to develop our muscle memory. So it's better to spread it, let's say in a week. I know it's hard for us to get the time, but it's better to spread it. Let's say you practice like 1 hour and 3 times a week than if you decide one day, like go for 4 hours. And do it, because you probably at the moment feel like, wow, great, 4 hours. It might feel really great, but 2 days later, you may not remember most of that, what you did. So the idea is to do for a little while, 1 hour, and then make sure that maybe, okay, you think you're going to forget in 2 days, so try to practice next day. And then you can leave a little time, and then another day, 3 hours a week, okay? Sometime when you have, especially coming to Berkeley College, you will have like 16 credits that you have to have a semester. So that is a lot of work. So you can go 3 times in the practice room, but that's a luxury thing to do. So doesn't matter, you don't have to practice. Usually it's for 2 hours every time you get the practice room. But those 2 hours you probably practice an hour and 40 minutes or something like that when you getting ready and all that. Well, so think of that too. You want to warm up. When you sit down, it's like you have to warm up your brain, your muscles, everything. 10 minutes after that, and then you are really in your brain, everything is together and absorbing. Okay, then, so this is a certain time that you, out of the 2 hours, you probably, like I said, an hour and 40 minutes maybe, is going to be where you're going to be doing it. But keep that in mind. Spread the practices more than trying to do all at once, because tomorrow is my class and I didn't practice the whole week, so I'm going to go practice. Of course, you got to do that. You did it, but absorbing, getting the muscle memory to be able to get in the automatic pilot when you're playing and just having a good time and listening, because you got to listen besides playing. That is just done by spreading those practices during the week. That's
Questions? Yeah.
When you're practicing, do you set up like related to that question? Do you set up 30 minutes devoted to fundamentals, 30 minutes of transcription, 30 minutes of this, or do you just work until you're done with something so you feel good about it and then move on?
I never feel good about it. That's why I keep practicing. Got to keep practicing. I want to bring up this analogy that someone mentioned about eating. It's like food. Imagine for a minute all of the food you're going to eat from your next meal until a week from today. Just think about all of that. Snacks, meals, breakfast, or some of you don't eat breakfast. Think about all of that, and then imagine, as Ricardo said, you're not going to eat all week except for, dinner a week from Tuesday. You're going to eat all of that food all at once. That's a horrible thought, isn't it? Practicing is like that. It's muscle memory. There's a lot of body involvement. If you've got 10 minutes to work on something, you might just be working on it in your head, like Darcel said. Like, I'm thinking about a particular reharm I just learned about. So now, even if I'm not on an instrument, I'm kind of thinking about it in my head. How would that go in all these keys? if you've got 10 minutes here, you've got an hour and 40 minutes there, you've got an ensemble rehearsal there, you can sort of be practicing throughout the day, just the way you might eat. And sometimes you're having a big, heavy meal, and sometimes you're just having a snack, and sometimes you're having a cup of tea, and all of those things work together. And I think I think this focus on the clock is it's not necessarily it's not going to help you as much as thinking about these are the things I want to get better at. And if you spend a little bit of time, each day or each week giving some attention to each one of them over the course of a longer period of time, you'll notice an improvement.
I can say some more.
Yes, it is. Can't stick to it. You gotta have, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so you have to have your practice log of the things that you want to work on. And then every time you sit down, you have to start in a different place. Otherwise, you're never going to get past the first one. So today I have a few minutes, I'm going to work on scales. Tomorrow I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to just go to the next thing and work on that for a while. And then the next day I have the next thing. That way, in the course of a week, you got to think big picture, you guys. You are young. You don't have a concept of infinity yet. But you have to think big picture. You're not going to get this done in the next 2 hours. You're not going to get it done in the next 2 weeks. You're not going to get it done before you leave 5 weeks. You're going to get it done in your lifetime if you're lucky. Think bigger picture. You're not going to master you know what I mean? You don't have to master the first thing on the list before you go on to the others. You're going to do a little bit of each of them. You can't just eat cereal your whole life. You have to have something more substantial, and you have to have something lighter, and Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, awesome,
No,
awesome. That's great. I think a practice log definitely reveals a lot, I know that I am getting distracted when I look at my practice log and I have like 15 different concepts that I'm trying to practice. Because what I do is I start with 3, and because I'm getting bored, I'll add another one, and then then I'll get bored and I'll go, oh, but I don't want to go back to those other 3, and I'll add another one. And then I can end up with like 15, 16 concepts on my practice log. So I know there's a problem there, And I tell my students a lot, this might not, be, everybody agree with this, but I really believe that the person who is able to stay bored the longest will end up being the best musician, And if you can push through it, I think, Darcel said it, you got to push yourself. You do. I studied with this, jazz guru, Charlie Banakas is his name. Yeah. And he would always say that, you got to push through, whether it be tempos. He would have me practice, permutations over giant steps to 300 BPM. I'm like, John Coltrane only did it 285. Why am I doing 300, Because you always got to try to, he goes, well, Coltrane already did it. You don't want to do just what Coltrane did. You want to go beyond that. I'm like, easy for you to say, But, you know what I'm saying? So I think when it comes to boredom, when you start feeling bored, try to hang in there 10 more minutes, man. Try to hang in there 15 more minutes. Like, I'm as bored as hell, but I don't care. I'm going to stick with this concept for 15 more minutes. You know what I mean? I think that's important.
And there's a voice teacher that I've worked with quite a few times that calls that process, when we're trying to accomplish something with our voice, she calls it waiting for the bus. So if you're waiting for the bus, it's like this bus is never going to come. But you continue to work on this technique, and then all of a sudden it's clear, and the bus is there. You're there. It's really cool.
That's great.
Can I make one more comment about because I know we're dealing with vocalists, guitarists, drums, a violinist. It's all different. A lot of times I have students that they develop really pretty bad tendinitis. I've had people through the 20 years that I've worked here. And that should never be. The only reason why that's happening is because you're playing harder than you have to. only press the note as hard as you need to get the sound out. I think because of nerves and different things, and I do it, I've done it a lot, and I try to be aware of it. You're like this, you're tense, That's like tendonitis waiting to happen. I think it's very important if you want to be able to practice the longest to really make sure that you're in a very relaxed state. To me, I kind of see it as a meditation, It really is just trying to be as relaxed as possible. I like what you were doing with the different things and just relaxing your body, but especially for guitar players, your arms, your hands, just only press as hard as you have to. Yeah.
How much do you think you should really push through? Is there a point where you should stop and realize, maybe come back to this in an hour, maybe take a break for the day, because nothing as good as coming out anyway?
What's your instrument?
On the side.
I use this with my students. When you're running and if your leg starts to hurt, you stop. If your leg starts to get a little tired, you tend to slow down. So if you gauge it with, not that you want to go until you're hurting and you're tired, but if that should happen during your practice, then stop. If you're tired, then go on. As a vocalist, I say target the places that you can massage, chill out for a minute, but if it hurts, you definitely want to stop anything.
Yeah, definitely. No, it hurts. Absolutely. You try to catch it just before it starts hurting, too, actually. Have the list of the things that you want to do. When you really just can't focus on one of them anymore, go to the next one. And try to get through all of them before you go back to the top. There's a lot of people are starting to understand a lot about the chemistry, about how you learn something, I don't know if you've read that book called The Talent Code. What's interesting in there is the neurological mechanics of how your brain makes a memory. And there's a limit, you've got to let your brain rest often. So if you introduce a new idea, or even if you've been working on one for a while, you have to give your brain a chance to do the chemistry it has to do before otherwise you're not learning it, you're wasting your time. Yes.
So I have things I want to focus on, things to practice, right? And sometimes I'll spend like a day practicing like 5 to 6 different things, but then not as much time on each thing. Do you think it's better to just focus on like 2 things for that day and put a lot of time into those, or like spread it out more?
I think everybody's different. I think you have to do what works for you. And I think over the course of a week, if you've gotten to everything on your list, you're in great shape. Small meals are healthier than the big, heavy ones.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
That's your opinion.
Yeah. Some of those things work. Like sometimes there are times in which you can focus on one specific thing and get a lot of information on one, but there will be other times in which it's not totally happening, and I think we want to be like one of the. This is an expression I say sometimes with an artist or a composer. Sometimes there is never an end to a composition. It's just that you have to end it at some point. You gotta do it, because otherwise you continue writing one composition. It will take 20 years. The same thing with practice. Sometimes it's something happens, boom, boom. Some of the time doesn't. So when something like that happens, don't get stuck. Don't make a wall out of that, but move on, and do something else. Or maybe at the time in which you said, okay, I need a little break. No more than half hour. Exactly what these guys are saying. That's what I tell my students. Half an hour, you have to get up, no matter what. If you feel you want to give, go. Get out of 2-3 minutes, go outside and go, stretch, go get a glass of water, blah, blah, blah. Boom, come back again. And you will feel like it's like, wow, again, your brain is ready for more. And at the moment, we don't want to stop, because we are warmed up and exciting and the whole thing. But those are certain times in which you have to put your timer, 30 minutes, and then you know that you got to stop. And when move on and do something else, probably totally to make a contrast, something else. You playing rock and make maybe just go into jazz, a swing, or a waltz, or a Latin groove, and change it. And then later on, boom. Sometimes things come like There is like I would tell the student, nothing just come by illumination, like, whoa, it's gonna fall. But sometimes it does. Sometimes you go like stuck in it. You come back after you do something else, and all of a sudden, oh, this is what I was trying to do, and then, so that's the way it goes, and you move on, and then spread it on time. Very quick example: studying piano to way back in 25 years ago, or something. I went back into some piano playing. I come back to my teacher, and said, "Okay, but what do you have with the technique?" I said, "Hanon." Okay, wow, that's good, man. I have the other one. And start playing like about 4 of the Hanon for the 1 week. And he like, "Okay, what? Wow. How long have you practiced?" I said, "I've been practicing like an hour a day." Is it an hour a day, the whole thing? Or no, I have like 3, 4 hours. So I wasn't working at Berkeley yet. And I said, I have like 3 hours, and I dedicate 1 hour just for the Hanon. And he looked at me, "Are you crazy? That's too much, man. You're going to hurt your hands. It's too much." They said, "Don't do that. Practice 15 minutes. That's all I need to practice Hanon. And then I want you to practice all the voicings and the music stuff and repertoire and stuff like that. So take your time." They said, "Don't push it because you're going to hurt your hands." So this was that my own experience. And I was saying, "Oh, okay, that makes sense," because I was beginning to feel like a little tired, my hands. I said, "No, don't do it." So, okay. So that's just an example, okay? How much is too much.
I just don't go away. I just want to say it's after 2. Don't you have it? Yeah, we have to say goodbye to Ricardo, and Darcel as well. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us.
Thank you. I was forgetting too. Thank you very much.
I'm not in a rush. If you want to ask some more questions, actually another faculty member just walked in that can answer some questions. Yeah. Yes, and I will repeat it for the camera. It's directed towards what you're participate. Yeah, yeah. Well, you've gotten through the basics already. So what you're working on, I think Ricardo was talking about that. If you've got a gig coming up, you figure out what you need for that gig, and you work on that. And if you had the gig and there are things that you didn't like, that's a great place to go back and practice. And if you have a different gig coming up, start practicing for that thing. That's a fantastic way to practice because you're building up your diversity and in what it is that you can play, and it's also fun to see how those things dovetail. Like something that you did on one gig that you then practiced, all of a sudden comes up as important on another gig. So yeah, I love that. I think that's great. Practicing for the gig. Did you have a question?
Yep. How do you guys approach managing yourself practicing, practicing with Heather? Say you're not like a trainer if you're driving in the car.
Well, what instrument do you play? Oh, that's a little harder for you. I don't know. Can you get your pencils out on the drain and?
I guess how I do it, I just kind of think basically sing like a melody, and that would be like a groove on my drum set.
Yeah, I think that's great. And when you're listening to music, dissect what the drummer is doing. Slow it down and see if you can really figure out where is that bass drum going. When is transcribe the music. And I love what you guys were saying about the pocket and the groove. That's immeasurable. Like it's when you hear a machine playing the drum part, you know immediately that it's a machine. When you hear a human playing that part, it's exactly the same thing going on, but you can tell that it's a human being. How come? How is that? How does that happen? There's something magical about that. So you've got to try to imagine the parts being greater than the sum of, what is it? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And try to think about, okay, it's the bass drum here, the hi-hat there, whatever it is. But it's not just that, because a machine can do that. It's what brings it together. That's the magic. So as you're dissecting that part, try to figure out what makes the magic. That's it.
I just wanted to maybe make a couple closing remarks because I have to go. And that's my student over there, so I wanted to kind of respond to him. You know, I'm a really big fan of trying to do the best you can to stick with one concept until you master it. I talked about that earlier in my opening monologue. Um, you know, it's interesting because, you know, you know, he's a guitar player. This probably relates to everybody. But I can practice a concept, say, you know, permutations on giant steps for 3 months, right? And know them so well that if I was just doing it to giant steps, and I can go to Joy Spring and be able to very easily do it because I practiced that one song, all the permutations so much, I can take that concept and apply it to any tune very quickly. You see what I mean? So if you're trying to do too many things, you just never end up mastering anything. And then, you know what I mean? You're on a gig and you don't feel comfortable enough to apply it, so you don't use it. So why the heck practice in the first place?
That's what I was kind of like saying before. Is like sometimes like I feel like less is more in a way. You know,
Yeah,
just,
I
like,
agree.
It's better to have one thing
Yeah.
mastered than like in a bunch of things.
Yeah. Well, it's hard, especially when you're younger, and especially when you're in a school like this, because you're getting thrown so many things at you.
Exactly.
You're like,
It's
what the
I
heck?
Like I get overwhelmed easily.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
I know.
I don't know what to be focusing on.
Well, I mean, I mean, we've talked about this too. It all depends on where you're at in life, you know, what's going on. I think being at an institution like this, you know, you're going to be practicing differently.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
you know.
And what kind of a learner you are. I think people learn differently. People have different capacity for focus. So you have to get to know what works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there another question?
I wanted to respond to your question. So, as Al's was saying, you're working on different things, different parts of the practice. You need to practice your writing too. And sometimes, we work on our technique, nothing replaces that. We work on repertoire, nothing replaces that. But sometimes part of practicing is I just have to look at the sheet music and think about the playing for. I'm driving to the gig and I put on the tune and I'm listening, not as a listener, but I'm practicing. I'm thinking about what I'm going to play when I'm doing it. And sometimes that's all we have time for, or that helps refresh us, or we're away from our instrument and we're still practicing. So we're not thinking technique. We're not thinking about right notes or incorrect notes or technique. We're just thinking about the music, but we're thinking, still learning, we're
Yep.
still practicing. And we do that all the time. A lot of times I'm like, I got a half hour before I'm going, all my gear is all packed up, but I'm gonna go, listen to the music, or in the car, I'm gonna be thinking about the tune and thinking about the form or where's the groove sitting or the progression or various different things. And I'm rehearsing in my brain. That can be as advantageous as anything else that you're working on is working in your brain. How am I thinking about this tune? What do I need to remember? Oh, remember that form on this? Or, oh, I've got those high notes? Or, oh, there's that really tough rhythm. Just thinking about that can help you so that when you get in the performance, you're more centered. Because you've already given it thought.
That's awesome.
I think we need to wrap up. I'll be here for a few more minutes if you have any other thoughts you want to share. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
coming.
guys.
I hope we were helpful. I know I learned a ton, and now I'm going to go back and start practicing again. Thank you. Thanks, Sal. Thank you all very much. Whoops. Oh, yeah. Come and check out the practice log. Do you have a minute to show off your practice log? This is brilliant.